This program is brought to you by realestate.com.au, Australia's #1 address in property. With more properties for sale than anywhere else, we make it easier.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the auction results across Australia over the past week. Nationally, there were 1,168 auctions with a clearance rate of about 58%. Sydney held 390 auctions with a clearance rate of about 63%. Melbourne had 392 auctions with a clearance rate of about 60%. Brisbane had 53 auctions with a clearance rate of 66%. Adelaide had 45 auctions with a clearance rate of about 64%. And Canberra had 55 auctions with a clearance rate of 54.5%. Well, joining me now on the set is Eleanor Creagh, Senior Economist at REA Group. Eleanor, thanks for your time. It looks like auctions are really starting to pick up again after the holidays.
Yeah, look, auction volumes picking up again after that kind of holiday-induced slowdown that we typically see, although volumes still significantly lower than this time last year. But clearance rates, a little bit more robust than we were seeing at the end of last year. Potentially those lower auction volumes may be underpinning clearance rates to a degree. And I think the fact that new listings have been relatively soft in recent months as well, helping to kind of stabilise values a little bit, given that we're seeing sellers holding back somewhat.
Yeah, some big news just before those auctions over the weekend was the Reserve Bank raising rates for a 9th straight board meeting. How have home prices been tracking since they started lifting interest rates back in May last year?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we've seen that substantial tightening from the Reserve Bank has certainly weighed on home prices pretty much Australia-wide now. And although we saw the pace of home price fall slowing in January, so nationally we saw home prices falling just 0.09% in January. So that's a significant slowing in the pace of price falls from the kind of plus 1% price falls that we were seeing back in June, July last year when interest rates first started rising. But nonetheless, we have seen that downturn continuing to deepen, and home prices nationally now down 4.51% from their peak in March last year. And of course, with that 9th consecutive interest rate rise, mortgage servicing costs are continuing to increase, borrowing capacity is continuing to reduce. So of course, that will take time to fully affect prices and to be reflected in prices.
The Reserve Bank also seemed to be a little more hawkish in their statement last week. It feels like interest rates may be going closer to that sort of 4% level. So does that mean if rates do go that high, is that going to put more pressure on house prices to potentially fall throughout the rest of this year?
Certainly, the trajectory of interest rates will be a key determinant of the depth of this downturn. And yes, RBA communications did seem to indicate that potentially we are looking at further rate rises than was potentially expected, and maybe there's some concern around wages growth and wages pressures. I think given that we've got this ongoing kind of de facto tightening in financial conditions coming down the line later this year, as a lot of those people that took advantage of incredibly low fixed rates throughout the pandemic period roll over onto mortgage rates that are going to be substantially higher, we are going to see that household spending does start to slow as those households are kind of forced to make budgetary adjustments with repayments rising. So potentially at this point in the tightening cycle, it's still going to pay off for the Reserve Bank to be a little bit more cautious with respect to rate rises from here on out.
So prices, they're obviously down from the peak, but it still looks like they're quite high when compared to that pre-pandemic number.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's really important because it means that for a lot of households, there is a sizable buffer there. So if we look at a national level, home prices are still up close to 30% on pre-pandemic levels. If we look at the smaller capital cities like Adelaide, Brisbane, Hobart, home prices are still up more than 40% in each of those capitals. In some regional areas as well, still up close to 50% on pre-pandemic levels. So certainly for a large number of households, there is a sizable equity buffer there that has been built up throughout the period of really strong price growth that we saw throughout COVID when interest rates were at record lows.
Well, Eleanor Creagh, Senior Economist with REA Group, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.